I am David Zimmerman, aka Spaztique. I am a fanfiction tutor. I've also made a bunch of satires, and I am known for a series that's based on all of my ridiculous tutories called Diamond in the Rough that deconstructs Touhou cliches, which we will go over tonight, and that is...
Introduce yourself.
Wait, what?
Who are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Wait, is this thing? I thought it was. Oh, here we go.
Ta-da!
I am Captainface. I am one of the contributors to a Touhou fan series called The Crossroads, which is mainly written by Kiguro Inku, or Deb, as we like to call her, and it's a collaboration between the Waffles Clubs on DeviantArt, and it's mainly sort of what we would call a follow-up or spin-off of Diamond in the Rough. But we'll examine more about that in a little bit.
Basically, both of our groups are kind of, we're tired of cliches and stuff, and tonight we are going to batter those cliches with a spiky bat. And this is going to go fast because we are going to cover a lot of material in about 50 minutes, actually 59 minutes, 49 minutes since we're running late. So is everybody ready? Say aye! Aye! There we go, and shout it back because you'll remember the answers more.
No.
What was that?
No, sorry.
Sean the non-believer. Okay, and also record this. If you have any phones, record this. Get this on camera. You'll need them notes later.
Anything.
Okay, first, the concept of inspiration. Any story, be it original fiction, be it fan fiction, needs to start somewhere. The beautiful thing about fan fiction is you already have your characters, your setting, but you don't have, this is what separates fan fiction from regular fiction. No. What separates fan fiction from regular fiction is you got to make your own characters and setting for that. But for fan fiction, all you have to need is the plot and the theme. What happens in the story? What do these characters do? But to start there are two things that I personally use. What do I think is cool, and what angers me? Go on?
I was going to say, really you got to keep in perspective what kind of tropes are the ones you are more favorable to or not, and figure out how to basically work with it.
Yes. There's a classic, the guy who made National Novel Writing Month, Chris Beatty, I think it is, he says that write down a list of all your favorite tropes, write down a list of all the tropes you don't like, include all the tropes you do like, get rid of the tropes you don't like. But personally, for satire, I make a series called Wolf the Satire, and I love to include real stories about real people and then embellish them using Touhou characters. Like, who here is familiar with the concept of one-itis? About the one guy who follows the one girl who follows the one guy. They think, oh, they're the one for me, but they've never actually talked to them. Like,
I know this trope. This is the group follow thing that Freeman mentioned in Freeman's line. One person does something who's normally smart, does something stupid, and the rest of the people follow.
And I thought I could make a story about this, so I took one of my characters, put them in we're going to go over this later. Basically, they pursue a character that gets got to do Gensokyo, but it's played for utter comedy, and he doesn't do anything until finally she takes over the Kappa Valley. But if you look at my series itself, which I wish we had internet to actually show you, we could, but that's enough about that. But basically, oh yes?
I was going to say, if you're talking about Diamond in the Rough, I should advise to our audience, bring the brain bleach.
Oh yeah, I'm not talking about Diamond in the Rough, I'm talking about Wolf the Satire. Trevor Terry is one-itis. That's the name of the comic.
Then pardon what I just said.
Okay, Diamond in the Rough is a whole other animal we'll get to later. Or maybe not at all. I don't like bringing it up because so many people say it's in development hell already, even though I work on it every single night whenever I'm not sick. Anyway, next up, if you have inspiration, what fuels you and what makes you angry, then you need your research. For any series, there's always a wiki, fan sites. The beauty about Touhou Project is Zune has tons. If you don't know what Touhou Project is, he's the sole creator of the story and everything. If you don't know about Touhou Project, basically a Galaga with fairies and mythological creatures, and all are played by little girls. It always gets a laugh.
And it also involves bullet hell simulation using colorful lights.
Yes, and what's cool about Touhou is Zune has written detailed descriptions for every single character, no matter how innocuous. Like a Stage 1 boss, there's 6 stages, Stage 1 only appears for just a few seconds. A Stage 1 boss will have like 80 paragraphs of description and backstory, which makes it ideal for fanfiction.
Sometimes there may even be characters who are mid-bosses or just little side characters that are regular enemies, and yet they still have their own description, like Lily White, for instance. She's a mid-boss, but she has this whole backstory that she's a fairy that appears whenever spring comes.
She's a herald of spring. She flies over, spreads her magic, everyone goes, "It's spring!" But if you're too close, she guns you down for powers. But anyway, yes, research. Zune has written a bunch of guidebooks, which you can find translations on the Touhou wiki, which are Perfect Memento in Strict Sense, Bohemian Archive in Japanese Read, and recently Symposium Post-Mysticism. I'm missing out a whole bunch of others, but these are your general base canon guides. We're going to go over canon versus Fanon in a second. And plus, the Touhou wiki also has game scripts. That is where you're going to start, because canon gives you where the series actually is, because if you just jump in without knowing what there is, you're going to anger some fans. Like, I think we're about to go over, this is canon versus Fanon in a nutshell. This is what happens in the game, and this is what the fans think because it's funny. Like, who here knows about Alice Margatroyd? In the games, she's Marissa's neighbor, she's aloof, she's the most level-headed character of them all. But give me a few words to describe Alice in fandom.
Tsundere!
She's what?
Tsundere.
Yes, Tsundere, but also, some people portray her as a yandere, too. Any others?
Stricken in love with Marissa.
Yes, always in love with Marissa. Marissa Stole the Precious Thing is a great example. But that's how Fanon portrays her. But, here's another good example. Reimu Hakare. Well, you want to do yours?
Well, you first.
Okay, Reimu Hakare. In canon, Reimu Hakare is a mix of things. On one hand, she's petty and greedy, all she wants is donations, but on the other hand, she wants to save Insokyo and keep the balance and stuff. But in Fanon, how is she normally portrayed?
Hungry.
What? Hungry, yes. What else?
A tyrant.
A tyrant, yes. I got a friend, Steve-O the Human, who also criticizes Fix, who loves the Reimu the Tyrant portrayal. What else?
She's basically most fans for breakfast.
Yes, poverty-stricken is another one. But the thing about characters, and even the thing about people, is if we assign one trait to these characters... yes.
This is a good example right here. There are two characters I really like in the Touhou fandom, and they get the unfortunate label of being psychotic. I'm going to go ahead and ask...
Yes.
That is one of them. The other is Yuka Kazame.
She's a genocidal freak.
That was PC98.
That was PC. But if you played Phantasmagoria Flower View, sure, she likes it.
Pretty much outside.
Well, yeah,
but... Let me explain. I've actually researched material and even talked to Spaztique some about it, and Flandre, although she is admittedly a little crazy, she's not psychotic. She doesn't want to kill everything. She's just like the little child across the room who wants to know how, the grasshopper moves around and accidentally tears off a leg of it.
She's talked to Aya.
She's cool.
She's all 6 legs in the head.
Gotta know. Doing science.
Yes, and Yuka, on the other hand, is just... A lot of people say she's, including one of the guys before recently, say that she's one of the worst yokai to get along with. I'm going to go ahead and say it. It's not true. She's more of just a yokai who is laid back. She doesn't want any trouble. She just wants to be left alone. And for Pete's sake, don't touch the garden.
Yes, if you played Phantasmagoria Flower View and played her campaign, she's like an underdog trying to clear her name. But the point is, if you lock yourself in just one trait, that limits your options for how you can use the characters. In fact, that's Dimension in a nutshell. How many contradictory behaviors can you give a single character? So if you get, you can even write a story where you have psychotic Yuka, but also friendly Yuka, but also cold, distant Yuka, but also warm and friendly Yuka. In fact, there was one writer, Tobio Bito Forever, a.k.a. the Gap Yokai, who wrote a beautiful story, White Flower of Summer, which shows what would happen if Yuka were to adopt a kid, which has an amazing OC, Noriko, I believe.
Yeah. She's really cute, by the way. And it's not just limited to the Canon versus Fanon thing. It could be the other way around. There are sometimes Fanon traits that may be somewhat better than the Canon, but you can't fully incorporate it, though. Like, for instance, Zone... Remember when Notori was portrayed as shy and such, and then in Hopeless Masquerade she came off as a little bit more jerkish? I'm going to go ahead and say I didn't agree with the jerkish portrayal. A lot of people did. Yeah, I would agree, though, she's neurotic, and maybe she'll come off as condescending because of that. But I don't think she's 100% a jerk. It's just Notori being Notori, pretty much.
There's the shift in Momiji when she finally got the first side. She was quoted as suddenly biting Naya's hand, figuratively speaking, not getting along with the...
Well...
Oh yeah, the IS story.
Yes.
That also depends on what's the need of your story, because you can have mean Momiji or nice Momiji, but let's see. Oh, we kind of covered this one for a bit. We're about, I think, 40% of the way through. Let's see. So if you have your inspiration, what makes you happy, what makes you angry, and you have your research, you know everything there is about Canon, you know a little bit about Fanon, and of course there are the flukes, like there is one writer, Chibi Chen, who wrote Mind the Gap. After seeing a bunch of fanfic riffs me and Steve-O did, and he said, you know what, I can do this, and he went in blind. He got it right perfectly, but the odds of that happening every time are very low. Which leads me to the next point, that one of the best ways to get help is a support group. I help run a group called the Waffle Station Wagon that was formed by this gentleman right here, HDF Journey 2000. And Joe is part of the Waffles Clubs.
1 and Waffles 2 clubs, but I also hang out in the station wagon as well.
Yeah, the beauty about the Waffles Clubs is we have separate groups, separate governments, but we intermingle. And the cool thing about support groups is you can give them your story. They're beta readers, basically. You say, hey, what do you think of this? And they'll tell you, I like it. And on the other hand, they might say, I don't like that part with blankety blank. And here's a big tip I can give you about critiques. Don't get critiques from just one person. I call this tutorees disease. Because someone I'll be tutoring says, hey, what do you think of my fic? What do you think of my fic? And I'll be like, they could use a little fixing here. And they're like, good, I'll fix it. And they fix it. They're like, is it good? Is it good? Okay, well, just send it out. Send it out to the people. Then they get a bunch of bad reviews back. And they're like, you're not a good tutor because you didn't make my story perfect. But they're the ones who wrote it. And the people out there are the ones who give you the tips on how to make your story better. So use your bad reviews.
Yeah, often whenever I'm helping out Deb or anyone write with a story, what I do is I carefully go over my facts first, and I ask multiple people at once instead of just going one by one, saying, does this sound good, or do you think it needs a little more tweaking? If they suggest just tweaking it a little bit, I'll do that and do it again and again, but not too much.
Yes, too much and you go into perfectionism and that destroys your momentum.
Yeah. Another thing I do is, and this is kind of interesting, one of the reasons, I'm slow to publish story pages and such, but one thing I do is whenever I'm curious about canon traits that I'm unsure is true or not, I may get a friend of mine, watcher CCG, he's pretty knowledgeable on the Touhou canon. We may act out or sort of role play the scenario, and if I think it looks good and he agrees with me, I'll show it to other people and go from there.
All right. Anyway, that's the psychology. Any skill in life is both psychology and mechanics, and that's how you think about writing. Where do you get your ideas? How do you know what your series, in this case Touhou, is all about? And of course, who can help you out with that? Now let's get to the mechanics. Who here is interested, the choices are plots and characters, who here is more interested in characters than plots? Raise your hand. Okay, who here is more interested in plots than characters? Okay, and who here is undecisive? Okay, this...
Or all of the above, how about that?
Okay, this might sway you a little bit, because there are certain patterns that I've noticed, is that a lot of people, when making Touhou fanfics, love to focus on original characters, but I have a challenge. If you're going to write a Touhou fanfic, write one decent Touhou fanfic using no original characters, nothing but the canon cast, and don't write an OC fic until you've written one good vanilla Touhou fic. Because here is the archetype that Steve-O and I have dubbed the Gappy Stew. Alright, who here wants to write a Touhou fanfic? Raise your hand.
Don't be shy, people.
What was the question again?
Who wants to write
Who here wants to write a Touhou fanfic, or could write a Touhou fanfic? Okay? Okay, keep your hands raised. Who here wants to write a Touhou fanfic that involves an OC, an original character? Okay, a lot of hand drops. Your hand's still up? Okay. Keep your hand raised if this character is from the outside world.
Put it down on your shame.
All right, this is a good crowd. This is a good sign because here is the archetype. It's a kid from the outside world who is gapped in by Yukari. He learns spell card rules from Reimu and Marissa, and when he first goes down to get Sokyo, he gets attacked by Rumia. He goes to the Kappa Valley to get weapons from Nitori. He, let's see, what else? He also goes to the Scarlet Devil Mansion for whatever reason. He goes to the Ayante to, like, get healed up by Dr. Aiding and maybe Moko's there, and like, oh, I escorted him here, and I'm just going to stick around.
And he goes also, of course, to maybe Marissa and Reimu and possibly Casson, just for training.
Yes. And no one... Oh, what was that back there? Or...
I once wrote a self-insert OC Supernatural Touhou crossover where I failed to get it against Sokyo because Dean and Sam stopped me and I got pissed.
Of the kind of nonsense that I deal with. But we want to avoid that. So, I have 11 principles to basically any OC design. There are 6 basic characters that you want to use, and they come in pairs. The first pair is the vanilla OC. In the case of Touhou, it's your yokai or native villager. It is a character with strengths, weaknesses, and a backstory. It fits in the Touhou universe. But does that mean that we are allowed to only use yokai or natives in the Touhou universe? Nope. Exactly. Otherwise, explain Phantasmagoria Dim Dream. That's the name of the Dimensional Dream, or what's the name of the game? I'm not a PC98 guy. There's a guy in the group D.D. Diz who knows way more. But yeah, you can have characters who are sci-fi or whatever come in, and they fit in more, and that would be the outsider OC. They don't fit in the series that you want to work in, but if you can tell a good story, it doesn't matter.
You know, that brings up a good point. Like, an OC that I see created by a person who's in the Crossroads development team. His name's Seth B1. His character is actually just an average person who is not gapped in, but he discovers the Hakure Shrine, and he voluntarily wants to go into Gensokyo, and through a strange series of events becomes friends with Rumia of all characters.
Oh yes, and you watch... What was that?
Oh, nothing.
Okay. If you read The Crossroad, it's actually a very, very cute relationship. And in addition to that pair, we also have characters that you can use sparsely, especially in gag stories. The escapist character and the not the parody character, the gag character. Here's what they do. They show up, and an escapist character does something cool, like they motorcycle out of a burning building to save the character. Then they go off to vacation on Europa, and then they leave. They just show up, they're used sparsely, and then they leave. The gag character...
Oh, and they leave a trail of fireworks.
Yes.
I have to go now, my blended
Firstly, Timba the Bear.
Oh, yes! Someone got that reference!
What?
Oh, yes. Here, I'm going to explain this real quick. Someone wrote a story, a Touhou fanfic, where the first yokai they encounter was a bear. And we joked about, it wasn't just a bear yokai, like it was just a grizzly bear. And every time we did a stream, we would actually show like a bear picture. This is what we want to avoid. Yeah, the gag character is like the Kenma the bear. He just shows up, does something funny, and then leaves. Or if anyone knows about any of the other videos I do, especially the birthday videos I do for HDF, we do a thing called Mac versus PC versus Linux versus a fourth character. It comes from this. In the first video...
Sorry.
Alright, see you later, Gabo.
Stop running at 11:24.
It's okay, we'll have this recorded.
We'll post this on YouTube.
Yes.
We'll never...
It'll be posted. See ya, Yomo. See ya.
barely knew her.
Anyway.
Like the example is, HDF here is a computer guy, and we have this commercial around. It's like, I'm a Mac, I'm a PC. And this old fellow walks in, I'm DOSBox! And then Linux over here is like, I'm Linux, care for a glass of wine?
And now we got SteamOS.
Oh yes, that'll come later, spoiler alert. And then another character comes in. Let me describe what this person is. He has blue long hair. He has giant blue antlers. He has like this weird hat with eyeballs on it. He has the biggest eyeballs and a giant toothy grin. He's wearing a rainbow shirt, and he's got a giant Jabba the Hutt tail, and he goes, "And I'm a pretty pony!" And he tackles Linux and starts licking him. And that's where it ends.
I don't know.
If we could figure out how to get the YouTube and the internet to work, we would show this video.
Just look up Mac versus Linux versus Pretty Pony. Yeah, that's it. Gag characters. They just show up, do something funny, and that's it. And lastly, we have the parody character and the author avatar. The parody character is, if you see a cliche again, something that makes you angry, you can make fun of it using the parody character, and the author avatar is, of course, yourself. Of course, a lot of people tend to think that, oh, if I use an author avatar, I'll automatically be labeled as a Mary Sue.
Well, that's
That's
not always the case. For instance, I have my author avatar in the Crossroad, but I intentionally asked Deb not to make me a prominent character, just make me one of those side characters who appears every now and then. And I do have a backstory for him, but I wouldn't go so far as to call him a full author avatar, because even I have some hesitations to use the author avatar method.
Yes?
I want to charge your computer, too.
I know. I'm just using it to charge my phone. In fact, I don't even need the computer. Let's see. Yeah, let's get that baby into sleep mode. Wait, no, not airplane mode. Alright, computer.
Technical difficulties.
Okay. But yeah, like, if author avatars didn't work as main characters, Woody Allen would be out of business.
Yeah, just because you don't want to use an author avatar doesn't mean it's a good or bad thing. It's just completely up to you.
Yeah, but of course. Oh,
no,
let's see. Yeah, let's see. We're at 11:08. We have about 20 minutes left, and we got a lot of material left. So, yes, but there is the problem of people want to avoid author avatars because of this archetype that's known as. Here's a few bad characters you want to avoid. The idealized author avatar, like. Often people write stories like, okay, I want to go to Gensokyo and be loved by all the Touhou characters, and that just comes off as selfish and neurotic, and you'll find a lot of these people who write these kinds of stories often have very low self-esteem. Like, the message of their story is, love me! I can't get what I want in the real world, so I'll get it in this fake world.
I win!
But of course, there are some people who get this and are like, I'm not going to use myself. I'm going to use a character who kind of looks like me, but isn't me. It's me with a different name. And that is what I like to call the blank slate character. Like, here's how often these stories start out. We have Gappy here. He has a white shirt, jeans. He has a backpack full of supplies. How convenient. And he walks around like Rainbow and Marissa give him a tour of the place, and if there's a big adventure, he's like in the back of these, like a huge cast of Touhou characters with this dumb look on his face. He's like, why did this happen? Oh wow, it's a lady with fire wings and she's immortal. Wow, I didn't know those existed, but somebody Mei Ling must have attacked. I heard that ringling noise. But, of course, that doesn't mean that a blank slate character can't be interesting. In the Waffle Station Wagon, we're developing a game called Yokai and Yukuris where you start out with everything you're dressed up as. Like, the last game I played, I was wearing a black shirt, jeans, had a phone, and my wallet. But I wasn't just going to be like, oh, wow, here I am in Makai. Oh, wow, there's Shinky. Ooh, ah. No. I went on a grand adventure that ended with me being held hostage by Mima, holding her staff to place it all over Gensokyo so she could, teleport to places. I had a giant trash can lid I stole from Makai, and I was working with the Myorin Temple, and they were following me around while I was pumping out Dennis Leary music. One of the big things we're going to learn is personality is more important than backstory or anything else. Backstory helps, but we're about to get to that. Let's see. Oh yeah, and lastly, the Mary Sue. Oh yeah, actually, should we go over the copycat or should we skip that?
I don't know, actually.
Okay, the copycat character is, let's say I have a character named Jane Kirasame. You can already tell where this is going. Okay, Jane Kirasame is the sister of Marissa. She knows magic just like Marissa. She says Zed just like Marissa. She flies on a broom. She uses Master Spark just like Marissa. Now, Marissa still appears in this story, And even the characters say, wow, Jane Kurosame sure acts a lot like Marissa. But if we were to replace Marissa, if we were to replace Jane in every single story with Marissa, could we tell the difference between Jane and Marissa?
Or heck, we could even remove the character.
Yeah, if we remove Jane altogether and put Marissa in her place, could we tell the difference?
No.
Exactly, because she's freaking Marissa!
You win the prize, sir.
What prize?
What's the prize?
Love. Master Spark!
Oh, the nation of
I'll
Mary
take it.
Sue's.
I want the cookie.
Yeah.
You got no cookies.
Okay.
But yes, again, here's the thing to remember. Don't make a character when you can simply use one of the canon characters. And finally, we have the Mary Sue or Marty Stew. Now, if a character has a weird name, does that make them a Mary Sue, Marty Stew?
By itself, no.
No, correct. If someone has strange powers, does that make them a Mary Sue or Marty Stew?
By itself, no.
Okay, if a character has a really crazy My Immortal-esque costume with fishnets and blood marks and eyeliner and the giant Good Charlotte tattoo across their forehead, does that make them a Mary Sue, Marty Stew?
Maybe.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it'll make them poorly designed.
It makes them a gaudy cosplayer.
Yes.
A Good Charlotte tattoo on their forehead.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that counts.
I'm pretty sure I will encounter that character one day.
I will write that right after this and blame it on you.
I will accept responsibility for that. What have I created?
What has science done?
What has science done? Gentlemen, behold, the Good Charlotte Yokai!
What do I have to live for now?
But the big thing about the Mary Sue Marty Stew thing is a Mary Sue or Marty Stew is a character that is immune to conflict. Now in stories, theme, I don't mean tone, it's a dark story. I mean say, a lot of the Touhou games might have the theme of, we can save others if we, put others before ourselves. We have our heroines running out and they're fighting the bad guys, putting themselves in danger, and in the end, it always ends with what kind of party?
Tea party.
Tea party, yes! But if we had every single scene ended in characters braving danger and succeeding, they brave danger and succeed, they always forgive their enemies, are always doing the right thing, how would you feel? Bored. Bored, yes!
Bored.
And that's why we need an opposite theme, a counter theme. And you can, this is what makes a story unique to you. How do you develop your counter themes and later your neutral ground in other places? In this case, we would have selfishness works because it can gain you more power. And we have these bad guys, like Romelia Scarlet starts a giant scarlet mist, so she can go outside whenever she wants. No sunlight, I have a scarlet mist. Oh crap, here comes the yin yang
Or
horse.
heck, it could just be a tragic backstory, my parents died when I was only 2 and I had to live on the streets for most of my life.
Oh yes.
Basically Batman.
I didn't mean to make that connection.
Okay, if not Batman, every RPG hero ever.
Yes. They lose the town, they lose the love interest, and maybe they lose one of their friends, but in the end they defeat the multi-winged leader of the corporation or whatever. Whatever they're doing this time. It's Endless Wings Night because I have so many wings! Let's see. Okay. Okay, 15 minutes. Okay. But yeah, if we just had, but at the same time, if we just had it so the bad guys beat everyone because of their selfish powers, the bad guys beat everyone because of their selfish powers, how would we feel about that? Bored again, because it's a one-sided story. So now...
More annoyed.
Oh yeah, annoyed as well, because it's nothing but the bad guys beating the good guys. But again, that's where hate fics come from. But if we were to... yes?
This isn't Dr. Horrible, unfortunately.
Yes. Actually, I think we have more than... we have actually 20 minutes, I think. Okay. So anyway, but now, let's say that we have these two sides, the theme and the counter theme, and they never run to the neutral ground. Everyone is perfectly selfless and they always do the right thing, or they're horribly selfish and they always do the bad thing. But there's no such thing as like a good person who like does selfish things to do the right thing, like say like Marissa in many of the stories, or characters who do selfless things to gain more power, like they argue against maybe the Yorin Temple or the Taoist characters. So what was that?
Sanai.
Yep, and that too. So
Selfless and
Not the son of
desire to gain power.
yeah. Pretty much, like, you can't, like, just have a theme and a counter theme. You also got to have your neutral ground. In the neutral ground, you could say it's people can be impulsive.